Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. I appreciate you joining me today. I wanted to take this time to talk a little bit about the future of our district. And what I'm going to do is form today's discussion around one word, and that is alignment. Interestingly enough, according to a 2024 Consumer Affairs ranking, California had the third worst roads in the country. So if you're ever partaking in a Trivial Pursuit game or you're in a call-in radio show and this question comes up, you will know the answer to this. Thankfully, Rhode Island and Hawaii are ranked lower than us. So I thank our friends in both of those states for having worse roads than us. I mention this because when you have bad roads, it affects the alignment of vehicles. And if you've ever hit a pothole in your car, you know that sometimes when you let go of the steering wheel, the car may tend to veer to the left, or the car may tend to veer to the right. Sometimes you lose track of going right down the middle of the road. And so today, with the word alignment in mind, I want to talk about how we're going to align our district for the future. So over about the next 30 minutes, I'm going to talk about some things that I think are important for our district team to know. And then we'll have about 15 minutes at the end for questions and answers. So talking about alignment for the future, as you probably know, we're coming down to the end of the current strategic plan for our district. So I want to thank Todd Costin in advance and Jennifer Surrett in advance for helping with questions. I've got 3 slides, and in a moment, I'll ask Todd to share the first slide with you. But I want to talk to our district team, meaning everybody across our 26,000-mile service area, about what we're going to be doing for the next model of strategic planning. I'll be introducing a new way to plan for the future. As you may know, strategic planning typically and traditionally offers an opportunity to review your mission, your vision, your core values, and then set forth a plan of work with action items, as we've done in the past. However, there's a new way to plan that's called future casting. Very quickly, future casting was invented at the University of Houston. Since that time, other universities, including Stanford, have taken an active role in promoting future casting. So, Todd, if you'll put the first slide up, I would love for everybody to very quickly read this about foresight. So oversimplifying it, foresight is all about the study of change. It's a methodology that helps us explore what our future may look like so we as a district can make better decisions today. It inspires confidence in the future, and we build a future together to avoid surprises. Todd, if you'll please go to the next slide. So talking about what the framework of foresight looks like, one of the things that we do is we look at the past and the present, where we are now. We conduct a current assessment of where we are today. Then we start to look at trends, issues, plans, projections. We do some environmental scanning, which I'll talk about more in detail in a few moments. And then drivers for the future. Indicators about where we may go, what we may need to do, establishing a baseline. The foresight framework is all about imagining a future and saying, how do we get there? So for example, as a district, how many students do we want to have in the future at each of our campuses? What are the demographics that we want to serve? What are our key initiatives for success? What type of students do we want to recruit? What type of initiatives do we want to pursue? So it's about examining the future state of our district and using that as the emphasis for planning, which is a little bit different than strategic planning. Strategic planning, you essentially look at the here and now and say, okay, what do we want to accomplish? Foresight is looking at a future and using environmental scanning, understanding trends, understanding plans and projections, and then forecasting a future that we're all involved and leads to increased student success. Todd, if you'll go to the last slide, please. The final slide is based upon archetypes. So when you look at future planning and future casting, there's a few systemic ways to look at it. You can look at the future as a baseline, meaning the same rules. System moves forward along its current trajectory. Most people say that I want to base planning on the baseline. So let's have things remain the same and move forward. It's one way to do it. There's another way called new equilibrium, which is changing rules. So we balance a system among competing forces, and then it's very different than the baseline of today. Transformation is new rules. The system is discarded in favor of a new one with a new set of rules. In strategic planning, sometimes if you say if it's not broken, don't break it. Transformation is looking at breaking the system, discarding everything, and coming in with a new set of rules. Collapse means there's no rules, that everything falls apart under negative forces, and that we're thrown into chaos. As part of foresight planning, we'll look at each one of these archetypes, and we'll talk about, okay, if things remain the same, what happens? If things collapse, good indication, state budget, right? What if the state budget collapses? Where does that leave the Kern Community College District? How do we ensure that we preserve service to our students? Transformative, we say, you know what? We're throwing everything away and we're going to start all over new. What does that look like? Or if there's a new equilibrium, what does that mean? The rules change a little bit here and there, but again, everything we do in foresight planning is based upon the outcome of student success and looking through scanning tools about what the future will be for our district, our colleges, and most importantly, our students. You'll hear much more about this in the very near future, but I wanted to introduce you today to at least the 10,000-foot level of foresight, the planning model, how we'll put this into place, how we'll be helping students, and most importantly, how do we imagine a future together? Todd, we're good to go with this slide. If you'll please reduce that. Thank you so much. So talking about alignment for the future, I want to mention one thing about student success. Everything we do should be based upon success of our students. I'm going to give you one area that's going to become a key initiative for me in the short term, and I hope for the district in the long term. I've said this to a few community groups and constituency groups over the last couple of days. So for those of you that have kind of heard the introduction, you're going to hear this for the second time. So one of the things I'm intimately interested in is students who enroll at one of our 3 colleges, and those students, for whatever reason, don't complete any units. So if you're familiar with Achieving the Dream or Complete College America, both ATD and CCA look at, as a measure of improving persistence, completion, agendas, how many students start out at an institution in a fall semester and for whatever reason don't finish. Maybe they ran into issues with the class, or maybe they ran into issues with an online learning environment. Maybe they had family issues. Maybe they had transportation issues if it was face-to-face. Maybe they had childcare issues. Maybe they had food insecurity. I'm intimately interested in, at the Kern Community College District, how many students enroll in a given fall semester. I'll give you some highlights of that information. And I want to thank Michael Carley and his team for the work they've already performed on this. So I looked at over the last 3 years of student enrollment data and how many students enrolled in a fall semester and completed 0 credit hours. So for example, fall of 2023 across the district, we had almost 5,000 students who enrolled, made a commitment, and for whatever reason, didn't complete. I would submit to you as a team, that's a group that we need to start with from a retention perspective. You've probably heard Dr. Christian in Vision 2030 talk about there are 6.8 million people in California right now that have college credits and no degree. We should absolutely join the effort and the initiative to help bring those individuals to completion. Absolutely. But I would submit to you as a district, what about the students who, again, started, but for whatever reason didn't complete? And you know, as fellow educators, what that means. So if I start out and I don't achieve success, then I probably have what's called unsatisfactory student progress, meaning that I probably have less than a 2-point GPA, 2.0 GPA. So I might be under academic probation. if I'm on academic probation, then I probably don't have access to Pell Grants, which may be important because I'm working part-time and I need that to help subsidize my college education. I may owe a balance. I wasn't able to pay my balance to whatever college I was attending. We have to start looking at these barriers for our students that may seem like mountains and may seem insurmountable in some occasions. I'm working through the process of having more conversations throughout the district and having some kind of second chance initiative backed up by fundraising. Because remember, if a student stopped out during their first semester, they probably had financial implications of stopping out. For us as a district, if we're looking at a state budget that's going to be less than favorable, I believe we should look at the students we had and figure out a way to recapture those students. Again, I'm fully in support of Vision 2030. I'm fully in support of taking adult learners to a point to where they can achieve a college credential. But team, we cannot forget about the students who had a dream. They started with us. Maybe they were only enrolled in 3 hours. Maybe they were enrolled in 10 hours. We can't forget about those students and try to figure out what barriers they had, if those barriers were formidable, or if there was something that we could help remove. So that's an example of the kind of things that I want us to look like in the future, the initiatives I want us to have. And again, I want us to try to work together to address things that perhaps we don't think about a lot. And I've had a lot of opportunity to work with both Achieving the Dream and Complete College America on very similar initiatives that profoundly affected student success. I also want to talk to you about aligning strategic marketing. Marketing goes hand in hand with student recruitment. Marketing goes hand in hand with students who have achieved 0 credit hours. How do we market to those students? So one of the first questions I asked when I came to the district was, what's our strategic marketing plan look like? We don't necessarily have a very deliberate and cogent strategic marketing plan. To be clear, marketing is happening on our campuses. But at this point, there's not a strategic plan that looks at the demographics, that looks at using traditional marketing as well as digital marketing. So for example, on the digital marketing side, talking about how do we use digital marketing to geofence areas that we're interested in to recruit demographics? How do we use email campaigns? How do we use retargeting campaigns? How do we use toasters, pop-ups, other things on our websites to help guide students? When we use toasters or pop-ups and we're able to recapture that data, we can retarget those students through an email campaign. Very soon, I will be convening an ad hoc committee comprised of individuals throughout our district that are engaged in marketing and other individuals to help me work with a strategic marketing firm on a new marketing plan for the district. It's not to say our institutions don't have their own individual identity. I want us to use our individual identities of our campuses, our college, our extension centers to help us plot a new future. That needs to be part of how we build our strategic enrollment plan. Strategic marketing and strategic enrollment are inexorably tied together. Once we have a strategic marketing plan, then we know the demographics better that we're going to market. I want to make sure that our marketing teams on our college campuses have access to the latest technology. And you know as well as I do that technology is such that if you are on a website, you might see a Porterville College ad, or depending upon what website you're on, you might see a Bakersfield College ad. If you're on Facebook, you might see a Saracoso College ad. The point is that digitally speaking, we need to be in front of as many people as possible to help our recruitment efforts. We need to couple that with what I'm going to call a first-year experience. Again, if you're familiar with Achieving the Dream and Complete College America, one of the things that ATD and CCA stress over and over again is having a deliberate first-year experience for students. In other words, we get students in from all demographics. Maybe you're first generation. Maybe you stopped out. Maybe you dropped out. Maybe you're an incoming freshman for the first time. The first-year experience is designed not just with early alerts. The first-year experience is designed so those students are deeply immersed and the cultures of our college. Yes, it's one thing to come to a campus and attend classes. I'm talking more about co-curricular activities, which of course we already do, but tying all these things together as a student success initiative. Again, realigning our district, focusing as we've always done on student success, but adding in some new elements like 0 credit hour students, getting them back on our campuses, strategic marketing initiatives aligned to the needs of our campus and our student demographics. And then looking at a future where the first year experience allows our students to be as deeply immersed as possible into our campuses and into our college community. So those are a few things that are future casting, if you will. I want to switch gears and talk a little bit about district office realignment. The district office, in my philosophical opinion, is a service-based organization. We exist to serve the needs of our institutions. We exist to help push large agendas forward. For example, we just talked about 0 credit hour students. That's an initiative that the district office should help with. We should help raise funds. We should help provide the structure for our campuses. The district office should help on the strategic marketing plan, of course, with consultative input from our campus constituents. But we need to be aligned personnel-wise as well. And so I want to quickly go over a couple of things that are happening right now. One of the things that will occur is that we will be soon hiring a vice chancellor for educational services. A district of our size and our stature, a leader not only in the state of California, by the way, but across the nation, needs a chief academic officer to help guide what we're talking about today and what we'll work on as a team in our new strategic plan. Very soon, there'll be more information about this. We'll talk more about it. I want to thank Deputy Chancellor Dr. Dadavoy for his work in the district for the last 12 years. Dr. Dadavoy will soon be transitioning out of his role as Deputy Chancellor into a different role. Soon he'll be retiring. I'm so thankful for his service across the district for student success. Zav and I've had an opportunity to talk about what the future looks like. He's helped me form a vision for student success for the future, including the things we're talking about now. So much more to come on that in the future, but I wanted you to know that there is strategic alignment reoccurring at the district office. And again, one of those major tenets is the Vice Chancellor for Educational Services. Hiring that position, as our other vice chancellors, will report directly to the chancellor. As Dr. Dadavoy continues to transition, in the immediate future, you may ask the question, do I have plans to fill the deputy chancellor position? At this moment, I do not. I'm still studying the district's organizational chart. I'm studying the organization of our district, of our campuses. So in the near future, I don't intend to fill that position. I'm simply not ready to do that. I don't have enough information yet to make a cogent decision, but I'll continue to work with Zav on moving many of these agendas forward. So I wanted to make sure that you knew that there was some work being done at the district office to, again, help us align to realize this new future under the foresight planning model. The other thing I wanted to make sure that our district knew is Dr. Claudia Habib, current president of Porterville College, congratulations is in order to her. She'll be leaving us soon to become the new president at Oxnard College, part of the Ventura Community College District. To our team and our constituents at Porterville College, I want to speak directly to you for a moment. So very soon we'll be going through a process to identify an individual to serve in the interim role. We'll be talking with that campus community, including management, faculty, staff, and of course, students, about what you want to see in the next president of Porterville College. But I wanted our entire district to hear from me and to know that Dr. Habib is preparing to transition. I wish her nothing but the best of success as she continues her upward ascension in her higher education career. So Porterville team, much more to hear from you. I'll be talking with you very soon about this. But again, I wanted to make sure that our district knew this was coming. Finally, before we get to Q&A, I want to talk about one other thing. So as we look at the future, as we look at the foresight model of changing, and we focus for a moment on equilibrium, meaning that some things stay in place, but there's change coming. And I want to talk about one of those changes. As you know, there was a campus culture survey that recently came out from Institutional Research. If you have not participated yet, please do so. I encourage everyone in our district to just take a few moments and tell me what you think. The surveys do not come directly to me. They are anonymous. I want to make sure that you know I'm after one thing, and that's your input. I've been in this business almost 30 years. I've had the privilege of serving in 5 different states, community college systems, university systems. I've been able to learn a lot, but the one thing that I can't do on my own is learn what you think if you don't tell me. Unfortunately, I don't have extrasensory perception. I've tried the magic 8-ball. It doesn't seem to give me the answers that I want. And so I need those answers from you. I need the answers from our team in the district. You might wonder what I intend to do with this data. So a couple different things. I wanted the survey to come out quickly because I also understand that our full-time faculty are getting ready to transition out of their 9-month contracts. And I wanted to make sure that they had the opportunity for input. So team, know this, over the summer, I'm a qualitative researcher. I should stop for a moment and say that. I love to hear about the phenomenological experience of people. In other words, your lived experiences. So this is all about your lived experiences, good, bad, indifferent, and in between. So over the summertime, once we have some common themes coded through the IR office, I'll be taking that information and hosting focus groups where I will be going out across the district and meeting with teams of people and say, okay, these are some of the things we heard from you as a focus group. Help me validate this. Tell me more about this. That will happen in the near future. Faculty directly to you. Obviously, I won't have enough time to get the results in and converse with you over the summer. Know that when you come back in August, I also intend to have focus groups across our district at all of our locations with our faculty as well. I'm going to come to you because I think that's important. I will not be holding these meetings via Zoom. I will be in a room. I will be on your campus. We will be face to face because I think that's the best way to speak directly to one another. Not that this isn't a great tool, but I want this to be face to face so you can see me. We can talk together about our future. This survey will form part of the new strategic plan under the foresight model. For example, there may be some things in this survey that we can fix right away or we can help with right away. There may be some things that takes us 6 months. There may be some things that takes us a year or longer. I am going to quantify all of that in the strategic plan to not only hold myself accountable, but to hold our district accountable for the things we agreed upon together. I want us to all be accountable to ourselves first. That starts with the chancellor. This survey is accountability to ensure that we have the kind of culture across our district that I want us to have. And I want to talk about what that means to me. I've been very fortunate to build highly functional, high performance teams across every institution I've ever worked. One of those methodologies is ensuring that I understand input from constituent groups about how do we engage in professional development? How do we engage in succession planning? How do we engage in strategic planning? All of these things are important to me. So I want you to know that moving forward, this is all part of what I want us to do together. So if you haven't filled out the survey, I encourage you to do so. There'll be some more reminders coming out. The information will be shared out with our campus communities. Some of you will see me over the summer. Faculty, you'll see me in the fall just because of timing. Everyone's voice is important. I want to make sure that everyone knows that. I'm going to start getting to questions in a moment. Kind of final thoughts about alignment. To me, we're engaging in looking at alignment for one key reason, and that's simply service to students. We exist for one reason, to help serve our students. As a first generation student myself, as an individual whose parents didn't graduate from high school, didn't have an opportunity to earn a high school equivalency, I know the struggles of many of our students because I've lived that life. My job, and I hope your job in joining me, is to help our students through those barriers. Sometimes to our students, those barriers seem insurmountable, but together we can overcome all of that. We can create a future that's powerful for students, that's based upon student success, and a future that we're in it together. We're all for one, but most importantly, we're all for student success. I'm going to transition to questions because I've got some questions on the screen that I'm going to answer. One of the questions is, I'm going to read these just so you know and you can see what I'm seeing. Do we have data on which student enrolled versus applied due to Bakersfield High School counselors requiring students to apply to BC? That's always an interesting question because here's the deal at almost any college campus. You know that one of the issues is high school districts encourage students to apply for the FAFSA free application for federal student aid. They encourage students to apply to schools, by the way, regardless of whether they intend to attend that particular institution or not. At this juncture, I don't have the answer to that question, meaning that I'm not sure how many students apply versus those who actually intend to arrive at one of our institutions, BC, Porterville, or Saracoso. We can certainly do a deeper dive into that and figure out what may be the number of quote unquote real applicants versus those who are applying but never attend. Todd and I will talk more about that as well as our IR team. Thank you for that question. The next one is, can you talk a bit more about how you're going to balance increasing district office size and college autonomy? Will it mean that more college functions will be done at the district office? So I'm not naive. I've been in this business 30 years. I'm aware there is discussions about what should be centralized at the district office versus what is done decentralized on our college campuses. One of the things that we need to do is we need to look at what should be a centralized function versus a decentralized function. One example would be the marketing plan. I think the marketing plan has to be a centralized function with very decentralized principles as a part of it. In other words, the district office should lead the conversations with our college communities, of course, but that plan needs to be embedded at each one of our college. You may be specifically referring to something like early college that was brought to the district office. You may not be surprised, but I've been asked that question more than once in the 49 days that I've been here. The answer that I have for you right now is this. I don't have enough information today to make a cogent, deliberate decision about where early college should be, or perhaps where it shouldn't be. Once the Vice Chancellor for Educational Services is on board, those are some decisions that we'll be talking through and making together. And so I know that that's a point of emphasis for the district. Obviously, a lot of our enrollment continues to come from early college. It's an important function. The question really becomes, where's this location at? Today, I can't answer that again, simply because I don't have enough information to give you a cogent, deliberate answer. And one thing you'll know about me is I will always be thoughtful. I will always be deliberate. Most importantly, team, I will always tell you why. I will tell you why something's being done. With that, I don't expect 100% of the people to agree with it 100% of the time. Everyone is entitled and has a right to their opinion. The one thing I can tell you is you'll always know what I'm doing. Most importantly, you'll know why. And I hope today you're getting some insight that I intend to be collaborative. That's my nature. That's who I am. And I'll always be transparent. Thank you for that question. The next question is, what is your personal office style? Open door, appointments only, any staff member? So as a campus CEO, I can tell you for almost the last 7 years, I had an open door policy for anyone. So what that meant was if your grandparents were in town, I would be happy to meet your grandparents. If you had your son or your daughter or your cousin or a friend, I'm happy to meet with you. Because of my schedule, I'm absolutely happy to meet with anyone It's a little easier if I do appointments only because I can help structure those in my day, but I have an open door policy. You can also email me. For those of you that have emailed me, I think I can unequivocally say, number one, I've responded to every email that's been sent to me individually. That's no different than when I was a campus president. I responded to every email sent to me, whether it was a community member, a student, faculty, staff, leadership. I just want you to know that that tradition will continue, that you can certainly come to the district. We can have a conversation via Zoom. We can have a conversation on the phone. You can email me. My accessibility is open to you. It may be a little bit different than when I was a campus CEO, but my commitment to you is that I'm accessible. And again, for those of you that have interacted with me, I hope you'll tell your teammates that I have been responsive. I've responded to you. I've invited you to be part of conversations. I will continue to do that. So yes, my policy is to talk and to listen to everyone. A really quick story about that. So a few years ago, I had a custodian come to me and she said, I don't feel like my job is very important because I'm a custodian. And I just wanted the college president to know that I don't feel like I'm important. And I said to this individual that your job is actually on a day-to-day basis more important than mine. The reason for that is I came from a primarily Black institution. 70+% of the students were African American. More than 35% had extreme poverty, generational abject poverty. They came from horrific family situations. I said to this individual that when a student comes on our campus, they see a warm, welcoming environment. Our grounds look good. When you walk into a building, it's clean. There's welcoming people. And you're like, well, that's not that big of a deal. If you've come from chaos, it's a huge deal because maybe that campus is the only place you find peace because maybe there's conflict in your family. Maybe you're couch surfing. Maybe you're living in your car. That campus is your only safe harbor. I said to this person that you contribute directly to that safe harbor. Our students come here and feel a sense of place because of what you and others do. She said, I never thought about it like that. Unfortunately, a couple of years later, she had an illness that was unexpected, passed away. We actually had a day where we named after her. I had a proclamation said this day in the future, today and tomorrow will always be to honor this person. I say that to you to give you a little bit of insight to how much I value the human experience, how much I value our team, how much I value everyone in every position. Because look, let's be frank. We don't achieve success unless we're on board together, unless we're on board working together in the same direction. It doesn't mean we won't have conflict. I actually think conflict is great as long as you manage conflict. Conflict without proper management descends into chaos. I encourage different opinions. I encourage diverse viewpoints because you know what? At the end of the day, we get a better product. Thank you for that question. I'm moving on to the next question, which is, what specific measures is the Kern Community College District taking to engage and support underrepresented student groups, and how are anti-racism principles being integrated into these initiatives to ensure their effectiveness? Additionally, how does the district plan to measure the success of these efforts over time? So this question is talking about underrepresented student groups and anti-racism principles. I'm going to give you a philosophic answer, then I'm going to talk about what we'll do in the future. So again, coming from the last 6 years at a primarily Black institution, I've engaged with underrepresented students very intimately. I've sat with students either in classes that I taught or focus groups or just conversations with students in the halls, trying to figure out how do we support underrepresented student groups. And I don't just count racial or ethnic groups as underrepresented. One of the things that I count is LGBTQ. To me, a student is a student regardless of where they're coming from, meaning gender orientation, race, creed, color, nationality, gender. As a district, a student, regardless of their background, should be our focus. One of the things that I'm committed to is working with our underrepresented groups on what matters to them. I can list off things that I've done, but I also haven't quantified or qualified them with our campus groups, our student bodies, our student government associations. So part of our new strategic planning process will obviously involve student groups to ensure that our underrepresented students have a voice too. Thank you for that question. I'm going to move on to the next question. Hi, Stephen. Thank you for the virtual session. Welcome aboard KCCD. Just wondering, what are your thoughts on making community college education free in California? That's an interesting question. So I'm familiar with the state of Tennessee that offers free community colleges education for students. I think one of the challenges is, one, philosophically. Sometimes when you ascribe $0 value to something, sometimes a return on that investment equates to a lesser degree. I want to make sure that our students have the opportunity to make an investment. What I don't want to do is have an investment where that's a mountain, that's a barrier. I think we would all agree, to many of our students, finances is a barrier. You probably know that student debt across America right now is 1.8 trillion. I'm going to pause for a second. That's 1.8 trillion with the T. Obviously, one of the things we can't do as a district is add to that debt. We have to figure out better ways for our students to attend college and emerge debt-free. That's time to completion, persistence, retention, leading to real jobs, all the things we're doing now. But I would say that free college is a typical thing to talk about. The issue is how do you pay for it? Because you all know it has to come from somewhere. Even if we're not charging students, the money to subsidize operations has to come from somewhere. So the question is, can the state of California help subsidize that? Unfortunately, as you know, in the short term, that may be kind of difficult given the state budget situation. But again, the one thing I'm committed to is trying to reduce the overall cost as best as we can to our students, while still maintaining the high quality of service we enjoy today. Thank you for that question. So the next question is there a strategic planning for the expansion and improvement of the early college area and location? I'm going to make some presumptions of this from early college area and location. If location refers to expanding in the district, absolutely we need to do that. If it's talking about where early college should be located vis-a-vis on our campuses or at the district, again, just to reiterate, that's still a decision that I'm working through. I will say this, from a strategic planning perspective, we will absolutely be talking about the expansion of early college. There's some other principles related to early college that I also want us to talk about. Those principles include middle college, which in the future we'll talk more about. But yes, strategically thinking, we have to look at early college. How do we grow that specifically and deliberately? And then again, how does that program go forward? Thank you for the question. The next question is, as we add more students and programs, what is the plan to grow space-wise? We are outgrowing our locations. So I'm going to answer that in general. One of the things that I want us to do is look at a space allocation and utilization, and we may very well do that. But here's the question I have, and I don't have the answer, but I'll give you some insight into my thought processes. Obviously, we have classrooms on all of our campuses. So the question becomes, what's the utilization of those classrooms from, let's say, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday? How much of that space is being used throughout the instructional day? Are there blocks of time where it isn't? Are those classrooms being used 30% of the time, 50% of the time, 10% of the time? So part of what I need to do is understand better how our space utilization is going, because yes, there's certainly some areas where we may be outgrowing our space. If that's the case, then we need to look at how do we use space to accommodate growth. I'll give you a specific example. So the other day, I was at Bakersfield College and I went to the Renegade Room, had an awesome dinner, spent some time with our culinary students, saw our facility there, and it's a wonderful program, but they're an example of a program busting at the seams. There were 20-some students in the back of house cooking, doing all the things you do in a culinary program. And so we talked about what does the future look like, and not to overstep President Flagger and his team, that's not it at all. just having the conversations about what can we do to help students, and space utilization clearly is a part of that. Thank you for the question. The next question is, how will you work to alleviate the tensions that happen when someone's personal values aren't aligned with the core values expressed by BC, I'm sorry. So this is a situation where individually, and someone may have some personal values that aren't aligned with the core values. Some of this is part of my ignorance about what a core value might be for an individual versus the institution. Here's what I'll say. I would hope that we as individuals can agree upon some indelible core values. For example, we're all about student success. We're all about equity, meaning that opportunity for everyone, regardless of their background. Are individual personal values always going to 100%? Thank you for the question, because I get to use the word alignment more time. If you're playing Zoom bingo, then I think I've used the word alignment 15 times. But alignment is important as far as values, but I don't know that we can align everyone's personal value with core values. What I will say is that I would hope we could agree on a set of values and principles that are all based upon student success. I would also hope that if someone's personal values were different, that we would agree to respect that person's opinion and at the same time move forward together to ensure that we value student success. Thank you for that question. The next question is, I'm excited by the talk of building a proper and data-driven district-wide marketing plan. However, one of our biggest obstacles to achieving our current marketing communication goals is a lack of support in the respective marketing areas at each college, both in budget and staffing support. Will the future planning include possible growth in marketing areas at each college? The short answer to that is yes, because when you engage in strategic marketing, here's the questions you have to ask. Moving forward, if you're going to reach these targets that we set together from a personnel standpoint, do we have the right personnel? Do we have the right personnel at our campuses? From a digital perspective, because remember, a lot of this can be accomplished with third-party digital vendors working with our marketing team. So I would also say it's not necessarily about adding a lot of people. It may very well be about adding people. But from a digital perspective, there's some amazing partners that I've worked with that, as an example, can help us with our digital marketing. I would say this, I will be bringing in, with consultation from our campuses, again, a third party to help us define a strategic marketing plan. One of my objectives and expectations of that plan would be to have that firm make some recommendations on what does our marketing look like today? What should it look like in the future? Again, sort of talking about the foresight model, and what do we want to accomplish together? So my answer to your question is, some of that's yet to be defined, but I'm going into it with an open mind about what we need to do. Thank you again for the question. The next question is, thank you for the conversation. Welcome. Thank you. We have many manual processes that often discourage our students from enrolling. Where are we with improving our processes and automating? I sort of chuckle about that because at my previous institution, we were also an Aleutian school. And despite all the capabilities that we had, we were still doing things by spreadsheet. We were still relying on Excel. And not that Excel isn't a valuable tool. Pivot tables are great, Excel's great, but we're more efficient and more effective the more things we can do through the student information system. So we absolutely have to explore moving away from manual processes to more automated processes. As a part of our new plan, we'll be looking at increasing efficiency and effectiveness across the district. Obviously, that means using Banner to its fullest extent. The more we use the student information system, the more reliable data that can emulate from that system. And so I completely agree. Manual processes are not efficient. Sometimes we have to do those, but overall, we have a significant investment in the student information system every year as a recurring cost. We need to ensure that everything that we're doing is maximized through the student information system. So I'm going to move on to the next question. Thank you for that. How are you planning to bring cohesiveness across the district and reduce fear of retaliation if people speak up? So personally, let me say this. As a leader, One thing that is a no-go for me is bullying in any form. One of the things that I experienced as a multiracial individual growing up in the Midwest in an area that had less than 2% ethnic and racial population was discrimination and bullying because I looked different. And when I was young, I encountered bullying that, quite frankly, was awful. And it could have done one of two things to me. It could have either sent me down a path where I was afraid and that I was afraid to move forward. Thankfully, it galvanized me and I was hell-bent on overcoming that. I recognize in the workplace that there are times where people don't feel free to express their opinions. Let me say this. I want us to be collaborative. I want us to work together. I value everyone's opinion. One thing you need to know about me is that I do not internalize everything. You can come into my office and say, I disagree with you. You're welcome to do that anytime without fear of retaliation. I, as the chancellor, intend to be the role model for an open, collaborative environment. My expectation is that our leaders, all of our leaders, emulate that same behavior, that we're open, that we listen, and that we're empathetic. There's a difference between being sympathetic and empathetic. I expect us to be empathetic. And so, talking to your question about building the culture, I intend to set the tone. I intend to be the one that sets the standard for us. And I expect our leaders to use the same standard. If that's not the case, that's a very different conversation with our leadership teams. I really appreciate the question. Thank you. The next question is, the data I have seen so far about our early college enrollments for 23-24 shows that Latinx students and Black students make up about 35% and 1% of the early college enrollment for a district that is over 50% Latinx. Is our early college practice promoting inequities in college access opportunity? I think that's a really interesting question. I'll tell you philosophically what I think is that we should always emulate the service area that we're serving. If there is an inequity, sometimes what happens is, as institutions, we create inequities and we don't know we're doing it. In other words, we're not setting out intentionally saying, man, I hope we create an inequity. But if our practices or our principles or our policies are creating a state of inequities, then yeah, we got to look at that. We got to make sure that the word equity, as you know, can be an ignition point for all kinds of different conversations. I hope to our district, the word equity equates to access, meaning that equity means that we're accessible to anyone, meaning that you should have no fear of what you don't know as a student. So if we need to look at our policies, absolutely. There's a lot of work from my perspective that I need to do to learn more about early college and what we're doing. Some of this will happen organically over the next several months. And as I've mentioned previously, it's an area that I'll be looking at thoroughly and intricately with the new Vice Chancellor for Educational Services. Thank you. The next question is, are there any plans to make BC a proper HSI? If you don't know what that means, it's Hispanic Serving Institution, where it is seen as such and not in name only. So again, let me say this. When we're talking about HSIs, Hispanic Serving Institutions, one of the ways you measure your effectiveness with students is through strategically looking at how you're engaging with students from a co-curricular standpoint. So co-curricular, if you're not familiar with that term, means what we are doing outside of the classroom to augment student learning. I'm a big fan of service learning. I'm a big fan of student advocacy. I'm a big fan of student government. I'm a big fan of student access. So if there are some things we need to build co-curricular presence on our campuses, whether it's for Hispanic, Latinx, or other student groups, I'm 100% in favor of that. I hope that information will also come out in the culture survey, because then we can also put that as one of the points in our new plan. But am I supportive of ensuring we have more opportunity for Latinx, Hispanic, Asian, African American, Caucasian, whatever it may be? Absolutely. We're a district that should mirror the students that we serve. We should always ensure that those students, their beliefs, their philosophies are at the center of what we do. Thank you for that. The next question is, focus groups are a great way for feedback. However, there may be a concern about retaliation of the feedback. What will the logistics of the focus groups be? So, good question. As I said earlier, I intend for focus groups to be in person with me as the chancellor. Those focus groups will be held with different groups. So in other words, what I intend to do is have a focus group with classified employees only, have a focus group with management employees only. In the fall, focus group with our faculty members only. The reason for that is that, again, as a qualitative researcher, I want to speak directly to those demographics to help me formulate whether or not the data I've received through the culture survey is qualified and stratified through the focus groups. I understand that there may be a fear of retaliation. And as the chancellor, I'm going to do everything in my power to promote an environment that is free of retaliation. Now, again, I'm not naive. I've been in this business for 30 years. I understand that there may be pockets where that happens. I will not tolerate it. If it's occurring, we have a human resources area. We have tools that we can use. I'm speaking to every employee on this call. You are valuable. You are an important part of this team. I cannot do this work alone. This is good work that we need to do together. In order to accomplish it, we need to make sure that we're all on the same page, that we're all looking forward to serving students. If we're living in an environment of fear, that doesn't help student success. I will continue for the entire time that I am chancellor of this district to serve as the strongest advocate for equality, for voices, particularly for those whose voices may be afraid to be heard. I'm your biggest supporter. I'm your ally. Thank you for the question. The next question is, I love the idea of a strategic marketing plan. Are you going to look at strategic technology plan? We currently have many systems that do not work or improve our ability to work. We have them because of political influence or past personal choices. So short answer is absolutely. Here's the bottom line. When we talk about alignment again, our technology resources have to be aligned with our strategic resources. So yes, I absolutely want to look at figuring out a better way for technology exists to help us be more effective and more efficient. That's its tool. Technology is not the panacea. Technology doesn't fix everything, but it's an important tool in how we carry out our duties and services to our students. So absolutely, thank you for the question. The next one is, what are a couple of your professional and personal passions? So I'll talk about professional first. So I have had the fortune and privilege of serving as a faculty member. Recently, as a college president, I developed and taught a president's leadership class. That was probably, as a college president, one of the most rewarding experiences I ever had. My last president's leadership class, the final project was to think like a consulting group. I gave them a fictitious company. They were a consulting group coming in to help this company that was almost ready to go belly up. I had a group of individuals from the community, business and industry leaders come in to evaluate these projects. At the end of the project, I had one particular large business ask if they could speak to every student. The person that was there offered every single student a job that day. That's what I love doing, is bridging gaps and giving people opportunities. By the way, several of the students walked out of there with a new job. If you talk about a professional passion, that's it. Connecting people with their dream, connecting them with a better future. So personally, that is one of my passions. And I hope as we move forward with professional development, I'm able to teach you what I know. I hope to be in front of some professional development workshops with our faculty, staff, and management teams and talk about leadership. It is my passion. Servant leadership is my dissertation topic. I'm again, qualitative researcher junkie, and so I would love to share that with you as a district. As far as personal passions, I should tell you that I can't wait for you to meet my wife, Lynette. Lynette and I share the same passion for serving others. My wife is an amazing person. She's an educator. She was a single parent who went to college at the age of 30. I don't think she would mind me telling you she went through some horrific situations when she was younger. She was in a very abusive relationship, and she overcame things that to most of us would just be horrific. And so our passion personally is helping people both at work and at play. My other passion is building cars. Because I was poor growing up, I fixed all my own cars because I didn't have any other choice. That has turned into a passion. So I build cars from scratch. If anybody's interested, I have a 1963 Chevy C10 that I'm building that I probably can't bring to California because I don't have enough room for it. So if you're interested in a 63 C10, let me know. I would be happy to negotiate that with you. But no, I love working on cars because it's a linear process and I can really see the results of what I do. So thank you for the question. I know we're going over time. I understand if you have to go by all means, but I do want to make sure that I get to all these questions. The next question is, what can we do to simplify processes we use to get our work done? Here's what I'll say. We should make everything as clear as possible. There's this old management principle called KISS, which is really keep it simple, or if you really like the one that most professors use, keep it simple, stupid. And so what that means is that sometimes we don't have to be over complex in what we do. And so how can we do that? Honestly, by getting feedback from the people who are doing it, getting feedback, promoting a culture where it's okay to say, I'm not sure this process is the best way we should be doing something. As we move forward with my tenure as chancellor, this open, collaborative, interactive environment I want us to have, and I hope that we have already that we can build on, you're free to say, man, we could do this better if only, or we could do this if we had access to that. The best way I know to simplify processes is to talk to the people who do them. As chancellor, I can come into your office, I can sit in there for a day, but that's not a well-rounded opinion of what you do or how you do it. I need your input. And so I would say on that topic, if you tell me what we're doing and how we can simplify it, I'll always listen and we'll find a way to do it together. Thanks for the question. The next one is, considering your vision with future casting and rapid developments in technology, absolutely. What actionable opportunities do you plan to strategically structure for professional development as an ongoing and supported effort across the district? Awesome question. Thank you. So here's the thing. As a district, we right now don't have what I would call a deliberate succession plan. I want us to work on that as a part of our new strategic plan. When we're talking about succession, what it means is, how do we fill open positions, or how do we help build professional development opportunities for our faculty and staff and our management? Think about this. I'd like us to have a coordinated professional development program. I was mentioning earlier to you about my love for teaching. I want to have a professional development program I envision where we teach people how to be strategic thinkers, critical thinkers. How do we resolve conflict? How do we develop constituency groups? How do we engage in fundraising? Fundraising is one of my passions. I've been fortunate to raise millions of dollars through fundraising. How can I share what I do to create an environment of fundraising? Because look, we're always closing deals, right? Always be closing is the principle that I operate on every day, because I'm always trying to close somebody with something to support this district. So professional development is a big part of that. As we move forward, professional development will become a big part of what we do. By the way, I will say this. Sometimes people are concerned about the exception as opposed to the majority, meaning that sometimes on campuses, there's conversations that go like this. Well, okay, we give these people these new knowledge, skills, and abilities. What if we do that and they leave? Okay, what if they do? What if they get a better job? That's a great thing, right? Because we've helped somebody. Do I want them to stay with us? Of course I do. I want us to use those knowledge, skills, and abilities to help our students. But if we build somebody up and they take advantage of another opportunity, good for them. To be honest, I left Saracoso in 1998 because the president then, if you knew Dr. Rhoda Arnell, one of my mentors, said to me, Steve, you have to leave. And at first I was like, man, that was harsh. I mean, gotta leave. Rose said, I know you want to be a college president. He said, you gotta leave. You gotta have other experiences. Rose's advice led me to 4 other states, all the systems that I've served in. I think I'm better because of it. So absolutely, if somebody leaves, I hope they become more successful than I have. And so I hope that answers the question. One of the things, the next question is, unethical decision-making has occurred for many years. What will the district do to start addressing these concerns and ensure we meet federal, state guidelines, et cetera? Let me say this. We have to always ensure that if there's federal mandates, federal guidelines, federal laws, state laws, we should always be in compliance, right? Being out of compliance with laws is a bad thing. There's a difference between being out of compliance and unethical decision-making. You'd probably agree with me. You can still be in compliance and make unethical decisions, right? So in other words, unethical decisions may lead to compliance issues. So I see them as two separate things. One, we should always be in compliance. If we're not, that's an issue. Two, we should be ensuring, I want to go back to the professional development conversation for just a second. We should be ensuring that everyone knows how to make decisions. Think about it. All of us make decisions every day. An unethical decision suggests that you've taken information and made a decision that perhaps isn't based in common sense, or maybe based upon personal interest or agendas, as opposed to what's best. I'll say this. If we're united around student success and we ask ourselves this question, is what we're doing the best to help our students succeed? That helps with unethical decision-making. Does it eliminate it? No, absolutely not. But again, I want us to have a culture where hopefully nobody makes unethical decisions. Can I guarantee that? Unfortunately, I can't. Hopefully there's enough of us making ethical decisions that say, look, student success is our number one principle, guys. And with this, you need to make principles that are based upon student success. Thank you for the question. The next question is, how do you plan to ensure that input and feedback from all members of our KCCD and classified employees who may be traditionally left out of decision-making are actively sought and valued in the development and implementation of programs? Hopefully, as we spend our time together today, and we'll spend more time in the future, I'm hoping it's becoming obvious to everyone that I value your opinion, regardless of your role within our district, because look, we need everybody to be successful. Some of the ways that I'll do that is meeting with our leadership, whether it's classified senate, unions, faculty senate, faculty unions. I will be open and accessible to those groups. You will have access to me. Part of the way that I'll ensure your voices are heard is to have access to me. That's one of the best ways I know to do that, is make sure that the chancellor is not this like mythical creature that every once in a while you see and you're like, that was a chancellor who just walked by. Wait a minute. I hope that you see me as a real person. And I hope, moreover, you see me as an authentic person. Thank you for the question. The next one is, finding a parking spot at BC has become increasingly difficult due to the ongoing construction. Have there been any discussions about expanding the parking spaces available for faculty and staff? I will admit my ignorance with this question. I'm not certain, but what I will do is I'll follow up with President Flagger and our leadership on the district office, because I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure if there's been to date conversations about addressing parking issues in the short term, but I will absolutely look into it. So I apologize, I'm not able to answer that question because I'm not sure about the answer. The next question is, how will you address the concerns of out of compliance issues, misuse of grant funds led at the district? I'm going to make some presumptions. I'm going to presume that when it's led at the district, rightly or wrongly, I would presume you mean at the district office. So if there's out of compliance or misuse of grant funds, then specifically we have to address that. Compliance is a very specific word. When you say out of compliance, it means that there is a mandate, right? That we're complying, that we're not complying with. We need to make sure that we are. If there's specific issues, and I'll do some research to make sure that we're complying. There's a difference in the philosophy of applying a grant or a program versus the misallocation, misappropriation, misuse. Again, to be clear, with any grant, any program, whether it's Title V funding, Title IV funding, Title III funding, we should always ensure we're complying with what the law tells us. Thank you for that question. The next one is, how do you plan to implement professional development throughout the district? So it's a topic we've touched on, but I'll add a little bit more to it. Professional development is going to be a centerpiece of our new strategic plan because we always need to continue to develop our talent. I think we have great talent throughout our district. The question becomes, how do we continually develop this talent to make sure that we've got people who are serving students to the best of their ability? So one of the mechanisms that we'll use, we'll work through HR, we'll look at our campus communities, we'll interact with our campus communities and talk about intentional professional development opportunities, whether those are workshops, whether those are classes, work sessions. Some of those I would suspect will be offered asynchronously because we do have some geographic limitations. Some of them I hope we can do on our campuses. Some of them I hope we can centralize at the district office. I want to make one comment about that. So I was in a conversation yesterday at Saracoso, and the question was mentioned that, we used to do pre-COVID, right? It was a different world. We used to do these things where we gathered everybody together, and everybody came together in Bakersfield. I think there's a lot of value in gathering everyone. I'm not sure logistically how I'm going to handle this, but I would like, maybe in the early fall, to gather everybody together and have a conversation face to face. I have to figure out the logistics of working that on our campuses. That's obviously a pretty heavy lift, and I got to figure that out. Just know there's value in us getting together face to face and seeing one another and interacting. Again, asynchronous is great like this, but it is a tool. Thank you for the question. The next one is, what is your plan to address institutional knowledge that has disappeared with individuals retiring, leaving across the colleges? What programs can be implemented to alleviate this burden? Also, thank you for addressing all these questions. You're absolutely welcome. So this happens commonly in business and industry. In addition to the skills I've been fortunate to acquire, I'm also a certified economic developer. My passion is workforce development, economic development, building economies to scale, integrating higher ed with workforce development. So here's the deal. We know in business and industry, there's a thing called the knowledge gap, right? The average age of our workforce across all these different constituency groups, people are leaving, they're retiring. So what happens is people are retiring, people are coming in here, and there's this knowledge and experience gap where people leave, and guess what? To your point, all this knowledge and experience walks out the door. So what do we do? It's the million-dollar question right now in business and industry. How do I achieve a process where I can alleviate or reduce that gap? So I can tell you some of the things that I've done in the past. Part of it is professional development. Part of it is when somebody leaves, having a process where we talk about what is it you do? What is it that we need to worry about the most? Succession planning. Okay, somebody's going to go. What is our succession plan for when that position's open? Let's say somebody gets a better job, right? We talked about that earlier. To ensure we don't have these really big gaps, how do we reduce that gap through a succession planning instrument that says, okay, what are the things we need to know? Somebody's coming into this role as interim, we're hiring somebody new. What does that mean? Process, procedures, what's the day-to-day functions? I think part of that can be addressed through succession planning and what we'll work on in our new succession plan. Thank you for that. The next question is, California business have long struggled with hybrid and remote work environments until COVID debunked some of the fundamental reasons for hesitancy. What are your views on keeping remote and hybrids open to ensure we keep and secure the best of the best in employees? As you might imagine, that is a subject that can invoke turbulence, shall we say. So I understand that there's empirical data that both supports and refutes remote working. I'll say this. There are some positions that I believe are important as frontline positions. When we walk through the door, we need to make sure that we have people there to serve our students. There may be some other positions that are more information technology related, management information systems related, that are more akin, obviously, to remote work. Let me say this. I'm definitely open to conversations, but I always want to ensure that one principle remains constant, and that is service to students. Again, going back to that question, is this, fill in the blank with whatever this is this in the best interest of serving our students? If remote work is, great. If it isn't, okay. You just need to know that I'm open to that. The next conversation is, at the district level, what new filtering techniques will we be exploring to combat enrollment bots or frauds? Can we increase support to our A&R, admissions and records, classified staffing to look at enrollment bots, since ID.me and bank mobile filtering didn't work out as expected? As you might suspect, I know a little bit about this from the 10,000 foot level. I know a little bit more detail because I work with Todd and others about this. I will actually ask Todd to follow up on that because I know there's lots of things we're doing. I know that we're working with AWS to decrease fraud. I can say this from a 10,000 foot level that combating fraud in the community college environment is one of my top priorities. Unfortunately, because we're open enrollment institutions, by the very nature of who we are, we're going to have more instances where someone can perpetrate fraud versus enrollments at universities, because again, we're open enrollment. So how do we combat that to the best of our ability? We'll take whatever measures we need to do. I can tell you this, the Board of Trustees is intimately interested and has an expectation that we do everything in our power to reduce enrollment fraud. So much more to come. As we come through the coming months, if we can figure out ways to support A&R, we absolutely will. Again, I'll ask Todd to follow up with some more information simply because I don't want to speak out of turn and tell you things that I'm not 100% confident in. The next question is it possible that social media and AI, artificial intelligence, would keep students from attending classes? What would you do about these obstacles? How would we get peers to communicate with other students to get involved in classrooms to gain their knowledge rather than depending upon technology? So obviously AI, huge discussion across higher ed. I watched a show recently where AI, Chat GPT, today has an IQ of over 150. Soon, Chat GPT will exceed by multiples the highest human IQ quotients very soon. AI is not going away. So the question is, I'm going to address that separately versus how do we engage students. AI is something that we need to embrace carefully and diligently. I'll give you an example. I'm aware of several doctoral programs. I've consulted with some doctoral programs who are using AI to help critical thinking in doctoral programs. I would say that when applied appropriately, AI can assist with critical thinking skills. It's a much longer conversation, but we need to make sure that we're leveraging it appropriately and ensuring that it's contributing, not taking away from the learning activities that need to take place. I know we're going way over, so I'm going to move on to the next questions. How will we engage multilingual communities, and how will multi-engaged communities figure into new KCCD marketing strategies? So bottom line, we have to make sure that we're communicating across several different linguistic groups, meaning that English is important, Spanish is important, other languages are important. So whatever we do from a marketing perspective, we need to make sure that it's multimodal, meaning that that message in the medium that it's sent reaches whatever student demographic that it is. And so the new marketing plan will absolutely ensure that equity, right? We've talked about that throughout this conversation, that equity means that we ensure that our demographics are receiving, number one, information they need, right? In a format that they can digest that information. The next question is, I agree, we unintentionally create inequities for our student populations, but we also do this among our employee populations. We are paid to improve student access and education, but we need to do more to provide employees and more opportunities as well. A survey about JAQs was recently released. What are the plans for the results of those JAQs? How long will it take for employees to see changes and improvements? Are there plans to align pay with current expectations and responsibilities? I suspect you're talking about something that's like a job assessment questionnaire. I'm aware that's going on. I will follow up with some more information about how we will address it specifically. I know we're doing some studies about what people do, in other words, duties and responsibilities, commensurate with pay. I can tell you there will be more coming on that. I don't have a concrete 100% answer because, as I understand it, we're still engaging in those studies, but I will make sure that that information is communicated broadly across our district. The next question is, there was a time when this was a great place to work. What will you or can you do to bring happiness back to everyone, to make it a place you want to be and not feel like, here we go again, back to this place? So much like many of you, over my career, not just in higher ed, but in other places, there's been times where I've woken up and I'm like, man, I got to go to work, and I got to go to work to some place where I don't want to be. I have to go to work at some place where I have to be because I have a family, I have bills, and I have obligations, right? And those things don't go away. I would use a different word. I agree that happiness is important. Happiness is subjective. So here's what I would say. How do we create a fulfilling work environment? Because I think happiness is a byproduct of a fulfilling work environment. In other words, I hope this is a place where we wake up and say, I can't wait to come and do what I do because I'm cared about. I know that I care for students and that we're all in this big boat rowing together. We're not out of alignment. We're not over here. We're not over here. We're working together. And again, I've said it before, I'm not naive. I know that 100% of the people will not always be 100% engaged 100% of the time. Here's what I hope. I hope that I set the example of engagement and that you see from your chancellor the same kind of engagement that I'm asking you for. In the first 49 days, I made it a point to get out and about. I'll be getting out and about more. I can say to you that I am going to set, and I am setting the expectation that this is a great place to work. There's something called the Aspen Institute. I'd like to talk to you more about later. We're kind of running out of time, but the Aspen Institute looks at great places to work. And I think it'd be a great thing for us to look at becoming an Aspen Institute awardee. Because you know what that means? It means that you're a great place to work. But ladies and gentlemen, it starts with me. I do not shy away nor shirk away from being the role model for this district. My job is to ensure, to the extent that I can, it is a great place to work. But I need everybody to help me. I cannot do it alone. I can set the tone, I can set the pace, and I can set the expectation. But I need all of you to help me lift that and make sure that we're all working together. The next question is, with the amount of funding being brought into the district through early college, is the district focusing on finding long-term funding for staffing that supports the state's initiative for more early college opportunities? I would say yes, but again, to the extent possible, I'm not sure about what the long-term answer is yet. Obviously, early college is a growth area for the district. I briefly mentioned middle college to you, which I have been a part of building some pretty amazing middle colleges. I want us to talk more about that. If you're not familiar, middle college is the embedding of a high school on a college campus. I'm a big fan of learning communities. I'm a big fan of learning cohorts that are deeply immersed in co-curricular activities, to the question earlier about how do we engage students. So I would say that early college is also probably predicated upon thinking about ways we can grow it, maybe a little bit differently than what we've been thinking. The next question is, let's talk cars. I'm all about talking to cars. I'm going to say that probably the 223 people that are with us, with the exception of maybe one or two, are probably not as interested in the discussion that I am. But I'm open to talk about cars anytime. So I have been really fortunate to build some pretty cool cars. So I'm particularly into Shelby Mustang. So that is my passion right now. I'm a big fan of Carroll Shelby. I loved what he did. Carroll Shelby is like one of my American icons. And so I'm absolutely open to talking about cars. So whenever you have more time, we will absolutely have a car discussion. The next question is, what are your thoughts on conducting yearly training meeting held at the district office specific to each department to discuss and resolve situations the department has encountered and currently encountering, to be collaborative and for employees to meet their counterparts at other campuses? Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, here's the deal. Where are the best solutions derived? As a leader, here's what I've always believed. You solve problems at the lowest common denominator. When problems get to the chancellor, maybe we could have solved them way down here in the chain. I'm a big fan of solving things here where it's happening, as opposed to things escalating because maybe they didn't need to. So I'm supportive of that. I'm supportive of that from professional development. Again, Zoom's a great tool. Video conferencing is a great tool, but I believe in the essence of who I am, we gain a lot by knowing each other face to face. If I'm an A&R and I know my colleagues at Bakersfield College, Porterville College, Saracoso College, I can pick up the phone and say, Steve, I am dealing with this problem. Help me out. That's inevitably made easier through relationships, right? Everything we do is based upon relationships. The stronger relationships we have, the better we can produce our end results. So 100% love the idea of getting together, having conversations. We just did that with interest-based bargaining for our classified staff. I thought it was awesome. It was a great experience, one that I want to emulate. The next question, what plans do you have to involve the communities we serve? So not talking about internal constituents, but external constituents. So some of the things that I'm looking at and working on right now is assessing how we better understand workforce needs of business and industry. And I realize that the communities are not just based upon workforce, but just to kind of give you an example, I'm going to be working on some initiatives that bring a cross-collaborative group together to discuss employment and training throughout the district. There'll be much more on that later, but to give you a flavor, for lack of a better term, on what I want to do, I want to make sure that we're addressing input from constituencies. I've already met with a lot of constituency groups from across the district. I'll continue to do that. So again, people have direct access to me as a chancellor. The next question is, early college data as of last weekend, so really current, is over 75% Latinx and Black. Sometimes there's misinformation and misunderstanding, about data. Can you tell us how we can share facts, information, and data internally so there is alignment? I applaud you for using the alignment term, by the way. One of the things to combat misinformation is the dissemination of fact. I'm a big fan of disseminating facts. In other words, separating fact from fiction, whether it's enrollment. We talked about students who enroll and earn 0 credits. I'll share that information with you soon. The more we know about our information, the better we can plot how do we address situations. And so my commitment is we always share facts, we share dashboards, we share data, we share information. Our data shouldn't be a secret to anybody. We need to know where we are at any given time. I'm a fan of something called policy governance, and unfortunately, we don't have enough time for me to get into a policy governance discussion with you. But if you're interested, Google the Carver model of policy governance. If you know a little bit about me in the last hour, you'll see why I'm a fan of policy governance. So thank you for the question. The last question I have is, classified workers are crucial to our operations. Absolutely. Many positions cannot be filled or have large turnover because the pay is not meeting the cost of living needs. How can this be addressed? This is a significant issue and a significant question, and I'll give you one thing that is so crucial. Housing. We have a lot of employees, I know because I've struggled with this myself personally, that can't afford safe and secure housing. You've seen my chancellor's newsletter, and one of the first things I said was housing for students is critical. It's a barrier. Housing helps alleviate food insecurities. We got to figure out a way to help address the gap with affordable housing for faculty and staff. I realize it's a separate conversation from student housing, but again, as an economic developer, as a community developer, I've been involved, and I know there are ways to make community housing affordable. I told a group of employees yesterday that this was going to be on my list. I can't accomplish it in a vacuum, but I understand affordable housing is an issue throughout our service area, particularly for our employees that are at a lower pay level. And again, being, quite frankly, when I was at Saracoso, I was a classified employee. I had a family. I understand, and quite frankly, I made choices whether or not I put gas in my car or I paid my electric bill. I'm not ashamed to say that. And so I know that living, quite frankly, not in poverty, but just above the federal poverty guideline doesn't lead to a healthy life. So I'm committed to helping whatever we can do. I know we're way past. I want to just say one thing in closing. I'm a big fan of civil rights and civil rights activists. MLK is one of my heroes, but Representative John Lewis, if you're familiar with him, Representative John Lewis recently passed away. He was probably the last great leader from the civil rights era. John Lewis said this. He talked about civil rights through the lens of it's time to engage in good and necessary trouble. What he meant is from a civil rights perspective, we to create trouble. Not that we're being civilly imprudent, but we're leading to change. And sometimes engaging in good and necessary trouble means change. There are many rooms in the house of good and necessary trouble, but I'll say this to you in closing. We do engage in good and necessary trouble to create the kind of work environment we've talked about. We do engage in good and necessary trouble to make this the best place to learn for our students. Team, we're never going to be perfect. I understand that, but we should always strive to be better tomorrow than we were today. We should always strive to be better next week, next month. That's how you engage in a process of continual improvement. Look, we're never going to be perfect, but I want us to be better as a district. Engaging in good and necessary trouble means that we're always bettering ourselves first, our district, and most importantly, it's service to students where all this happens. This will not be the last time we talk. I'm so appreciative of the time you took on a Friday. Thank you for joining me. Best wishes to you and your family for a wonderful weekend. Be safe, and I'll see you soon. Bye, everyone.